Greetings to all, Jacob on the mic. As we know, at the beginning of the Second World War, the German troops managed to conquer France quite quickly. In many ways, this success was possible due to the fact that they were able to break through Belgium, which, until the declaration of war on it, did not let the troops of France and Great Britain into its territory. Because of this, without the support of great powers, Belgium was quickly occupied. Then it turned out that the Ardennes did not pose a significant obstacle for the Germans. And what happened next, well, you already know. I would like to tell you a story about how things went differently. How did Belgium, prepared for war, change the course of it? How did Belgium prepare for war? The Road to 56 mod will help me answer these questions, where Belgium has focuses suitable for this. Belgians against fascism in the Hearts of Iron 4. Belgium, a small but rather densely populated state, was a constitutional monarchy divided into two approximately equal regions, Dutch-speaking Flanders and French-speaking Wallonia. During the First World War, it was almost entirely occupied by German troops, who, according to the Schlieffen's plan, tried to defeat France quickly by breaking through Belgian territories. This act of aggression happened despite the eternal neutrality declared back in 1839 and continuing until this war. The First World War had a severe impact on Belgium. The Belgian economy was undermined during the 4 years of occupation, and the attitude of the Germans towards the Belgian population was terrible. Systematic war crimes went down in history as the rape of Belgium. As a result of the war, Belgium received from Germany small border territories and densely populated colonies in Africa, Rwanda and Burundi, as well as reparations in the amount of 4 billion gold marks, which in fact was small for the destroyed Belgian economy, only 8% of the total payments to victorious powers. The then King of the Belgians, Albert I, by the way, was against the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, which was unbearable for Germany, and will clearly serve as a reason for a new war. He failed to be convinced that he was right. In 1934, he died at the age of 58. Yielding the throne to his son, Leopold III. In 1936, Belgium was still dealing with the aftermath of the Great Depression, which severely undermined its economy. Economic problems were solved by a method similar to the Roosevelt's New Deal, the creation of jobs by the state. These were mainly infrastructure projects. For example, creating a unified transport system and linking existing roads with tunnels was necessary for rapidly developing Brussels. The construction of a new transport system has strengthened the development of the Brussels economy and generally helped to reduce the number of unemployed in the country. In parallel with this, in March, German troops entered the demilitarized Rhineland. The reaction of France and Great Britain to the, in fact, gross violation of the terms of the Treaty of Versailles was very sluggish. The French authorities strongly condemned German actions, but did not take any action on this matter. Thus, Belgium again found itself under the nose of the German army. In the recently re-elected Belgian parliament, disputes flared up on this basis. Is it worth returning to the full neutrality? It was clear that the great powers did not react in any way to the destruction of the established world order, and neutrality could somehow reduce the chances of aggression from Germany. This idea was promoted mainly by the Flemings, who wanted to follow the example of the Netherlands, a neutral country for 150 years. However, the Belgians remembered how, just 20 years ago, Belgian neutrality was destroyed and the country was occupied. The idea of complete neutrality was rejected, and it was replaced by the concept of fighting fascism. Because of this, the coalition government with the supporting neutrality leftists was dissolved, and the liberal Paul-Émile Janson became prime minister. Three things were necessary to implement the concept: acquire reliable allies, increase the armed forces, and build solid fortifications. It was possible to increase the army by implementing the plan of General van der Bergen. The neutrality of, for example, Switzerland was reinforced by a large conscript army, and the idea was to create a large pool of conscripts for mobilization. The divisions were reorganized and re-equipped. The bet was made on the positional warfare using a large number of stationary equipment. With the increase in the army personnel, an old problem surfaced: the bilingualism of Belgium. The French language has always been more prestigious, and orders in the military were given in French. However, this created difficulties in communication with the Flemish units. The army structure was divided into Dutch and French-speaking divisions to solve this problem. The enlarged army required more weapons, which led to an increase in military-industrial capacity in Wallonia. At the same time, the US Congress passed an act of neutrality, tying the hands of Roosevelt in support of the warring countries. This law led to the United States not participating in a new war in Europe. But this is so, by the way. By the 1938, Belgium was able to get out of the economic crisis completely. And just in time, there was a second gross violation of the Treaty of Versailles. Germany sent troops to Austria and annexed it. Again, there was no reaction from the great powers. The Anschluss of Austria happened. And although it was not yet entirely obvious that the war would begin, Belgium began throughout preparations for it. On September 9th, an agreement on economic cooperation between the Benelux countries was signed, providing a common customs border. What is essential for us is the secret protocol that accompanies this treaty. According to it, in the event of a German attack on the Netherlands, Belgium had the right to send troops into their territory immediately. This secret agreement was made in the first place because there were no significant geographical barriers between Belgium and the Netherlands, so if Germany broke through the Netherlands, Belgium would have problems. The Belgian command has developed 3 plans of action for different circumstances. The first scenario was that the Dutch forces would be able to hold off the onslaught of the German war machine for more than 2 weeks. Then the Allied troops will arrive at the border and fight there. The second scenario was the surrender of Friesland, fortification in Amsterdam and on the left bank of the Rhine. This was the most realistic scenario. The third scenario, the worst, was to occupy the border areas up to the Maas River. The security of the German-Belgian border was supposed to be ensured by the fortification line in Liege, the Albert Canal, completed in 1939, and fortifications in Eupen. Particular attention was paid to the third dimension of war: air. Since the creation of its own air force was too costly for the budget, attention was focused on the development of air defense. Air defense systems were deployed in all major cities, as well as in forts. In October, the Munich Agreement was concluded between the great powers of Europe, according to which Czechoslovakia transferred the Sudetenland to Germany. In return, Hitler promised not to seize any more territories. Simultaneously with this event, France and Great Britain formed a military alliance, which Belgium joined a few months later, an alliance that will be accompanied by the adjective useless in the memoirs of most Belgian officers. But I will talk about this later. Hitler, by the way, broke his promise in less than 6 months. In March 1939, he sent troops into Czechoslovakia. The Czechia was occupied and a puppet regime was established in Slovakia. In May, a similar alliance was concluded between Germany and Italy, similar to the Franco-British one. And in August, a non-aggression pact was signed with the Soviet Union, as it later became also known as the Treaty on the Division of Eastern Europe. Everyone has already understood that only war will stop Germany. The war began as soon as someone decided to fight back the Third Reich. Having received a refusal from Poland to an ultimatum demanding the transfer of the free city of Danzig, Hitler launched an invasion of Poland. Finally, opening their eyes, France and Great Britain declared war on Germany. The Belgian government decided not to wait for the German troops to defeat Poland and also joined the war. To protect the country and peace in Europe, all the political parties, together with the king, united in a single wartime government, headed by Prime Minister Hubert Perlot. Arguments about neutrality no longer made sense. Even the nationalist parties supported the country by sending volunteers to the front. By the beginning of the war, Belgian troops consisted of 250,000 soldiers, united in 24 divisions. Seeing that concentration of German troops on the border was small, the Belgian generals decided to launch an attack and go to the Rhine. The attack, however, was repulsed, and the front returned to its original position. For a long time, this was the only attempt at offense on the Western Front. France did not take any action. Moreover, most of its forces were concentrated on the border with Italy, which had not even entered the war by that time. However, even so, the German command was forced to allocate large forces to the Belgian border and begin an assault on their fortifications. All attacks were repulsed, and the fortifications in Eupen earned the status of impregnable. Thanks to the biding of German troops in the west, Poland was able to withstand the first attack, and in some places even go on the offensive. The Allies did not provide Poland with any support, even though Poland held the ports in Gdynia and Danzig for a very long time. The Blitzkrieg ultimately failed. In December, having made no progress, Hitler declared war on Denmark, because German command thought the Allies were sending aid to Poland across the Baltic Sea. The Führer could not believe that Poland was fighting back on its own. Serious fighting in the north, however, did not occur. An attempted landing in Copenhagen was repulsed, and Danish troops even attempted a counteroffensive. Thus, the fighting took place only in Belgium and Poland until 1940, when the Italian Duce Benito Mussolini entered the war under pressure from Hitler. Finally, French units in Provence and Africa will come in handy. This is how General Maurice Quillards, commander of the defense of the fortifications in Eupen, reacted to this news. 2 weeks later, Hitler attempted to invade the Netherlands, hoping to outflank the Belgian fortifications across the Dutch plains. Belgian troops were able to implement the first plan, namely to take defense on the Dutch-German border. It was understandable. Germany was surrounded by the enemies, and the German divisions, for the most part, were only 2/3 equipped. The flat terrain was useful not to the Germans but to the Belgians. Having seen the numerical and qualitative superiority, they went on the offensive. In March, the Germans were surrounded for the first time. Only one division, but it was a good symbol for the Allied forces. After a short fight, it surrendered. In April, Belgian troops managed to occupy 2 important cities, Wilhelmshaven, the main base of the Kriegsmarine in the North Sea, as well as Köln, the largest city on the Rhine, and even arrange a prayer service in the famous Cologne Cathedral. In parallel, French troops were able to advance in the Italian Piedmont. At the same time, thanks to the Hitler promises of territorial acquisitions, Hungary entered the war. But this no longer mattered. It became obvious to the world that the defeat of Germany and Italy was only a matter of time. By May, Germany's losses in the war had reached 1.5 million people. June. Frankfurt was taken. A breakthrough was made to the secret line. The German troops were in state of semi-encirclement. July. The encirclement was closed. Saarbrücken was taken. Mainz was taken. In the surrounded Gdansk and Gdynia, fierce battles were going on. Poland was on the verge of defeat. Italian troops were defeated in the northern Italy. After the pro-German coup, Romania joined the war. August. Hanover was captured. September. The French entered Hamburg. The world was shocked by the news of China's total defeat in the Sino-Japanese War. Magdeburg was taken. Allied forces were separated from Berlin only by the Elbe River. October. A large encirclement of German troops in the north. November. After several months of bloody battles, the Germans still managed to occupy Warsaw. Poland capitulated. December. An attempt by Italian troops to land was repulsed. More than 50,000 soldiers were captured. The Elbe was forced. The first attempt to storm Berlin was repulsed. In half-occupied Italy, a constitutional monarchy was restored, headed by a Committee for National Liberation. The new year began with a week-long battle for Berlin. On January 2nd, 1941, 8 Belgian divisions knocked out the city's garrison and marched victoriously through the streets of the German capital. Nevertheless, Hitler and the government of the Third Reich had already managed to escape to Vienna by that time. After that, the intensity of the fighting decreased, The Allies were busy with the Italian operation, and after the surrender of Poland, Germany freed up forces for the Western Front. March. Munich breakthrough. German troops in the Baden-Württemberg were surrounded. The encircled divisions put up fierce resistance for another 2 months. May. Nuremberg and Dresden were taken. Bulgaria joined the Axis. British landing in Poland. June. The liberation of Prague. Italy capitulates. The occupation of Salzburg. Meeting with the Allied troops of the Italian front in Innsbruck. The war was coming to an end. On July 3, 1941, Belgian troops took Vienna and found Hitler dead. The government of the Third Reich capitulated. The remaining Axis countries did not want to continue the fight, and therefore a peace treaty was concluded in Breslau, modern Wrocław. Europe has received the fate of just borders. As the most valuable participant in the war, Belgium established a provisional occupation government in most modern Germany. Poland received the territories of Prussia as well as Silesia. Czechoslovakia and Austria regained their independence. Belgium paid its price for the victory in the war. 122,000 people were killed and wounded. In total, about 7.5 million people died in the war on both sides, which is more than 2 times less than in the First World War. The democratic world still had to do something with the growing strength of the Japanese Empire and the Soviet Union, which had taken the eastern lands of Poland under the terms of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. But this was no longer part of Belgium's problems. The country was returning to peaceful life, reforging swords into plowshares, proud of the fact that they didn't let a single enemy soldier cross their border. Air defense, by the way, was not useful. German planes did not even fly into the airspace of the Benelux. Well, that's all I wanted to say. See you in the next video. Jacob was with you, and with that, I say goodbye.